Training ground. You asked for it, you get it. Ryu and I will rip your photos into smithereens. Hold on to your coronas. Here comes the pain.
Of course you're gonna get a Corona mention. What else are we gonna talk about other than Corona? Welcome to Big Lens welcome to Big Lens Fast Shutter. I cannot have a retake because we're doing this live. Happy Corona Day, everybody, and happy Corona Day to sports photographers worldwide, where we're in the deepest shit probably possible ever. So I don't know, I just realized that maybe we cannot do training ground next month because there won't be any pictures shot at all.
I think people should have enough in their archives to give to us.
Yeah, maybe that's what you guys should kind of think about. So I think starting from next month, that will be April, I will be accepting any photos that you've shot in the past year. No,
I mean, it really should be anything, right? It should be anything that you want help with. It doesn't matter how old it is, right? You can still learn from an old picture.
Like an old one, like 5 years old and too old?
Why not?
Okay. All right. It's such a it's not one of those points that I could just go either way. So whatever you want, send it to us, and we will have a training ground Corona quarantine style. So without further ado, these are pictures probably shot before the Corona hit us, and we start off with Kevin Sosa, where he gave us some pictures of hockey. And it shouldn't be here. It's a really good photo. Yeah. It's a fantastic photo. I mean, he had that sense to make that put that reflection there. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna start nitpicking, I wish the reflection was a bit lighter because you can't kind of barely see it.
It's also not straight.
No, it's not, and that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, but here's the thing, that could be fixed, right? This could still be fixed, right? Easily. with just a rotation. But the point I wanted to make about this is that as you grow as a sports photographer, you're looking to, I look at it as layering techniques, right? Trying to do, this is a behind the scenes picture. This is a ref picture. This is a reaction picture because the ref is obviously pretty tired. There's a lot of different things going on here, and Kevin didn't settle for any one. This could have been just a picture of that door, or it could have been just a picture of the ref, right? If you're breaking it down all the way, this could have been just a picture of vertical 2x3 of the ref walking through the door with his hand on his head, and that picture would have been okay. Nothing wrong with that, right? Then it could have been a picture of the ref and the player and the door, and that would have been good. Probably pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. But what Kevin did was he saw all of these things going on, and he layered them all together and used all of these elements. So this is a much higher degree of difficulty picture. And he successfully layered all those things together to make it more complex, and definitely something that you would want to look at for more than a couple seconds, which is really the point of all of this. So the lesson, because you're not going to find yourself in exactly this situation, the lesson is if you know where people are going to be, right? The hard part is when let's say you're shooting football, whether American or European, and there's just so much room and you don't know where the ball is going to go, and you're just taking what's there with a 400. This is the opposite of that. You know that people are going to be coming and going through these doors, and they're just going to be doing it all the time. And so that gives you the opportunity to look around and say, okay, well, there are definitely going to be people here, and I know I can get clean, focused, well-composed pictures. How can I take that to the next level? And that's what Kevin's done here by continuing to take a step back and then another step back and saying, I'm not going to settle for just a picture of the ref. I'm not going to settle for just the ref and the player. I'm going to go for the really high degree of difficulty, and I'm going to use the mirror or the window or whatever this is to make it into a reflection picture over everything else. So that's that's how you get to a picture like this, where you're looking around, where you know that there's going to be like the things that Kevin was able to do here. He was able to say the light isn't changing, and the place where the people aren't going to isn't going to be changing. So that lets you move all of the other variables around because you have a couple of them that are fixed. You know where the focus point's going to be, you know what the lighting is going to be. Then you have the freedom to go around and say, okay, well, as long as that's where it's going to be, I'm still going to have a picture. And you're able to step back enough to get to a point where you can see the other angles and the reflections in this case.
So this is Bear Dog, and that is probably Mike. Mike, is it Mike? Who Bear Dog is? Well, it's Bear Dog. This is a photo of a volleyball game, and yeah. The first thing first, the legs cut off at a weird point. It's a no. Like, we've been through this a lot. Like, you can't that leg cut just right there. There's an art to leg cutting, and if it looks awkward, then you have to like cut it to a point that it doesn't look awkward anymore. That's always the case with leg cutting. It's I don't really kind of mind this weird spotlight effect that the strobe actually had. Like, I really don't. I think it's quite cool, but it's not, I don't know, it's just not quite there. They got weird shadows and everything as well, and yeah, and the color's a bit off as well. It's a bit too blue.
Yeah, I think
off.
Yeah, it's kind of a train wreck, but let's in the spirit of whatever, working together and not killing each other. So he's to be applauded for actually setting up strobes, because 99.9% of the people would have just gone into this gym that's obviously too dark and come out with orange pictures and blur and whatever. So it's good that he set up the lights. I'm a little bit concerned with how the lights are set up here. It feels random a little bit. Like, I get that you were going for light on top and behind. I guess that's what we're talking about here. But it's not, if you're shooting from this position, it doesn't really seem like the lights are where they should be. And so what I'll say is, let's say you're going back to this gym and you're going to shoot another volleyball game there. Don't think that you're going to be able to set your lights up in one place and then just shoot the whole, whatever, like follow the team as they're switching or something like that. What I would do is either make sure that you have, depending on what kind of lights you have and how big and where you can put them, light up a defined area of the court, whether it's half or maybe it's just the area around the net or something like that, and then shoot like that. Don't try to, shoot like wherever. That's what this looks like. Like, that shadow is, I don't know, it's distracting because it's not shaped like anything. Like, if it was shaped like her body or something, that would be cool, but it's just like a long stripe in there. And then you have the legs in the background. And so the thing is that when you're setting up strobes, you want the light to all be where you want it to be, and you want it not to be where you don't want it to be. And so you either have to use direct, like aiming, or you have to set up flags, or just the way you're shooting to have a dark background. You don't want the light that you're adding to the scene to get onto things that aren't the subject of the picture. And that's what's happening here. If, let's say you were able to dark, the background was completely dark because the light was only going on to her, that would have been like, whatever, you cut off the leg, but it would have been interesting because she would have been the only thing that was getting any light in here. But having all that extra stuff in the background, like if you're going to shoot like this, you need to be more careful about the backgrounds because they should be black. And so that's what I was saying. Set up the lights and then shoot where the lights are set up. Don't move around a lot. And if you have to make choices that are going to put the light where the action is happening the most, and then put yourself in a situation where you're benefiting from that light and it's not screwing you in the background. So that, not knowing what this looks like, I would say, maybe don't worry so much about the backlight and maybe do two really highlights, on either side. So you're kind of just amping up what would be ceiling lights. It's not going to be the most pretty, but it'll be the safest and you'll come away with the most pictures. If you want to go for more of an artistic thing, then put the lights like really close together, maybe separated only by a few degrees or something like that, and then shoot from the same position the whole time. But don't, just because you have a couple strobes set up doesn't mean you're lighting up the whole gym, and it doesn't mean the light that's spilling past your subject is helping your picture, because it's just not in this case.
Yeah. I actually do like the background of the, you can see the other girl's legs only. I don't like the
Yeah, I don't
fact
like
that
that.
there's that's fine, I like it, but it's just like there's a girl next to her on the right that really fucks me off. Like it's not really good, you know? Like that, I don't want her to be there because she's the libero, no, of the team, so she's wearing something that's completely different from other people. That's what I'm assuming. Because everyone else is wearing red. So yeah, I don't know. Better luck next time. So it's a volleyball fiesta. I don't know. It feels like an iPhone picture to me. It's too far. Nothing interesting is going on with this one. I mean, I guess like what you thought was interesting was that sand coming off the ball, so you can see all the particles of sand that is reflected by the light. But I mean, like, there's so much crap going on in the background as well. So
It's also not like that. I guess it's motion blur at that point.
yeah, it's F4. It's
Yeah.
quite far as
So
well,
you're
though.
shooting outside in the brightest daylight that there is, right? That light is coming straight down from the top, and you're at
Yeah.
1 1250. 1250 is what you do like as a emergency, if you're in a dark gym or something like that. Like I don't go below 1250 and try to shoot action really, right? So don't be out in the sun when that's what's going on. So and then yeah, the if you want the cool part of this picture to be his arm and the sand flying off of it, then that needs to be the picture, not all the other stuff that's going on. It's just very small area of the picture that's interesting.
Mm.
And the part that you want most to call people's attention to is the part that's most affected by the shutter speed being too slow,
I
which
mean, like,
is having this particle really frozen.
what would you recommend people that they should, like, if they actually want to really stop the action every single time, like, what would be the ideal shutter speed?
So looking at this for the arm, I would say he wasn't off by very much, right? The arm is mostly there. It's just, a little bit soft. So 1600th or 2000 would have taken care of the arm 100%.
And
And
the
that would have
ball.
taken the sand. Yeah. And the ball also. The
Mm.
sand, because those small particles, just relatively speaking, like they're moving from pixel to pixel, there will be more motion in there. So you need a higher shutter speed to stop the smaller. I don't know what rule that is or whatever, but it's
Mm.
just how it is, right? So yeah, to stop like dust and sand and dirt and things like that, very small particles, you need a faster shutter speed. So maybe 20, what is it, 2500 or 3200 or something like that. But a good rule is the 1250 is the bare minimum. Like if that's all you could get here, then that would have been okay. But it just so happens that the part of the picture that you're trying to call attention to the most is most harmed by that. So if you're trying to get a picture like this, like what would we do if we were in this situation? I would have a longer lens and I would be only focusing on that guy from his left arm up to where the top of his right hand is. And I would have been underexposing everything so that I could get a faster shutter speed, freeze the sand, and make a more dramatic difference between the light that's hitting his arm in the sand and the light that's hitting the background. You could have underexposed this and the sand would have popped even more and the background would have been darker, which would have helped everything. One difference would have helped this picture completely. And then also having a different lens on and being closer to it.
Mm. Okay. So now he's a bit higher now, and this is probably the most boring one out of all of them.
This is the one that screams out for lighting, right? And this is obviously a significantly bigger arena just because you're able to get up this much higher. And there's also, it looks like there's better lighting in here, but it's still just coming straight down, right? You can kind of see it here. Like this is after the ball is hit, everything is moving slower than it was in the other picture. Like that guy's arm was moving a lot faster than the rest of his body, and then the ball was moving faster. In this situation, she's already hit the ball, and so everything is decelerating, and then it looks like the ball probably either just is getting ready to hit that girl in the face or is going back the other way. That's why a thousandth of a second is enough to stop the action here, and it wasn't in the other thing. And that's why 12/50th is the bare minimum, because it'll stop the center mass and mostly the limbs, but there's still going to be a little motion. So you can, if you really need to, drop down to a thousandth or eight hundredth of a second or something, but then you have to pick your spots more where things are going slower than they are at the peak of the action. As far as this picture goes, I would say that this picture would have benefited from, a light behind where you were shooting and then a light on the other side, but both high up and shooting down on them. I would have liked to have taken that white sign in the background for whatever school that is, and the people in the seats and the stairs and all of that. And so if you had strobed this and exposed for the people who were in the strobe, then you could have just dropped all the rest of it down to nothing. I don't care to see basketball pictures that aren't strobed, and I don't care to see volleyball pictures that aren't strobed. That's indoor, right? Outdoor, you can do whatever you want. Indoor, you're not going to be able to isolate the background enough like this, and the light is drab and it's not interesting, and nothing that's going to happen here is going to be good enough to make up for the flat, ugly lighting that's going on here.
I think it's just like for the composition's sake, like it's, I don't know, like it's just not very interesting. I'm just like, I understand, like, yeah, like there's always just a lot going on, and the beauty of like these things, it should always be like less is better. So your eyes
have to start.
You have to start directly into there.
You have to like, I don't start shooting until I know that I'm getting the best background that I can get given the circumstances, right? I'm thinking about the background first, like before what kind of picture I'm going to make or something. I'm looking for, how can I not kill myself before I even start, right? And so when you set up in this situation and you scroll down to the XF again. So yeah, you're at 2.8 here. You had no chance. There's nothing you could do here.
No.
If this is the extent that you can blur out the background, you gave yourself no chance from before you pressed the button the first time. Everything you got was going to look like this. And what do you have? You're late on the action because the ball is already away, right? And it's not bouncing off of her face and it's not on her hands. And then if you look in the background, you have people sitting there, hands on their knees or whatever. And then the I don't know, what are they, coaches or judges or whatever, are, they have their head in their hands. So you never had a chance here. And the only way you can do that is by starting out with, how is this picture going to look? Is the background going to be too distracting? Can I strobe this? How do I don't know, look for either a differential in light or distance or something like that, so that you're not fighting from second one. Like this was a battle from the second that you set up, and you were just never going to win it. It's tough, man. It's tough.
I don't know, because I don't really think like the girls in the back are not the main character for me. It's the girl in the front,
Yeah. It's really it's just unlucky. Like, I would say that you were probably doing everything right here, and you probably just got screwed. But part of this is that you have to know when you got screwed. And when you have something in the foreground that is out of focus, and it's a person or it's calling attention to itself, if it had just been number 15 or something like that, you could have left her in or you could have cropped it out or something. But having that girl in the white, again, it being the person on the team that wears the different color, man, it just sucks all of the energy out of it. And
Yeah.
it sucks because it's a, the two women are really, all of them are giving it up. I mean, this is what you're looking for, but she just knelt down, an inch away from where you needed her to. Like if she had been lower, like let's say she was filling that space in between 15 and 1 and she had been low, like where the M is in the sign in the background, you could have totally gotten away with this. But it's just because she's covering up one of the people that you need in the picture and there's no good way to crop around it. This is just a straight up throwaway.
Yeah. I mean, it's too obvious that she's there. You can't hide her anywhere with this one. Toyin. I mean, if you want to play with shadows, then you have to make sure there's something interesting going on with the shadows. This is just like, to me, it's a bit too lazy and it's a bit too ordinary. You see these type of shots bazillions of times, and if the guy has this like hand, extended so you can see his hands or you can see his head or maybe his hair, like the shadow has to be doing something. Like this, there's nothing going on. There's absolutely nothing going on. Like that shadow looks like a dick, actually.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Are we sure it's not?
I don't know, it could possibly be.
No, it looks like his hand. It's his hand.
Yeah, but like if that was your intention, like it's fine. If that was what you wanted us to portray, but even if it's too also subtle, and
Yeah,
I think subtleness in pictures are always very difficult to justify. It has to be obvious to the untrained eyes and say, oh, this is a really cool photo because of this. And if this is only like
the starting block isn't helping either.
No, it's not. So I don't know. You gotta have to like think about it a bit more with this. Like next time, maybe a higher angle so you can see the shadows clearly. And it has to be a bit wider because you can't really see. I think you're cutting off the head as well for the shadow, and it's not really doing that much. Or different time of the day.
And you have to keep in mind that starting block is always going to be closer to him than you are to him. So, it's, you either have to figure out a way to work it in so that it's not hurting. Like, look how it's like just poking out by his right leg right there. And then there's, I don't know, half an inch on the other side where the starting block is poking out. That's not, like there are ways to do this. Like, let's say that his legs were the only thing you could see, and then the starting block didn't go outside of his legs, right? The angle was such that his legs were the outside and the machine was on the inside or something. Then you would have a fighting chance there. But having like a little bit sticking out on one side and a lot sticking out on the other side makes it look haphazard. And then you have, I don't know what that thing is. You have the cable and then that other little thing that's over there. That's not visually pleasing. That's distracting. And if you don't have a plan for how to deal with those kind of things, then you're better off thinking of a different plan.
Good.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be here. Perfectly lined up and everything as well.
Yeah.
This is boring. Or this doesn't really do anything. Like, what's the point? Like, what is it that you want to do with this picture? Because I don't see anything in it.
Yeah. It's this is the kind of thing where it's not even really a sports picture, except that there's a Nike swoosh and the Menlo logo on there. That's it. It's so what you don't need the ball, you don't need more of him, right? So I'm not trying to raise the bar super high. You don't have to have all of these things going on, but what you do need to have is like a more interesting angle, or you need to be using the light in a more interesting way, or you need to use the background in a more interesting way. This is just a snapshot, just an iPhone picture, right? It's not that there's nothing going on, it's that it's not visually pleasing. It's just You got a guy it's like a portrait of somebody who's just standing on the street, really. It's not, there's no, his hair's not even doing anything cool. He doesn't have sweat all over his face. There's just something missing. It's just like a started kind of picture. So let's say that you didn't have any of the other things. Let's say you couldn't move and the light was the light and he didn't touch the ball or something like that. Could you have been lower and making his face into more of a profile and a weird angle that the shadow of his eyebrows and his nose would have been making a cool pattern or something? Like, there's a million things you could have done that have to do with like a really oblique kind of angle or just barely having him in the frame or something like that. But this is just like, I don't know, you curled up a piece of paper and you threw it into the trash can and it was like, okay, that, really wasn't very difficult. It was only 4 feet away or something like that. You really need to make these things visually pleasing, and the less going on, the more visually pleasing they have to be.
Like, who's this dude? I think like the thing is, like, if you have picture like this, if you're part of the Menlo Park community or something, like Menlo Atherton varsity girls soccer team manager, then yes, like I think like, oh, it's so and so. But for 99% of the people out there, it's like, who the fuck is this guy? And if you have to like take a picture of a guy who you like, you think that no one really knows outside of Menlo Park, blah 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 blah, then you have to like make sure that the picture is very very good, right? Like if I take a picture of like, well, I don't know, Tom Brady or Ronaldo or LeBron James or whoever is super famous, there is like that gap that I can just easily clear because A, he is famous, and then in that way you get attention immediately. It's not a free pass for having a shitty picture, but it does help your picture because he is or she is famous. It really does. Like, I'm just saying that, just flat out, it just does. It's how like your brain works, But this guy, I don't know who he is. Like, you might know, but I've got no idea who he is. I don't think Matt does. No, like not a lot of people do,
No.
And same as the guy before, the player. Like, you have to make sure like there's a really really good picture so that the person, who that person is, doesn't really matter because the picture is beautiful.
Yeah, it's you need to do more with the access that you have. You need a little bit more context. And I would say that, whatever, this, if you were doing a set of 30 pictures from the game to give to the school to put on their Facebook page or something like that, then a picture like this is, whatever, it's fine. It's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the context or, something that has a little bit more going on. But, whatever, nobody's going to laugh you out of the Facebook group because of it. But if you're going to make this kind of a picture, I don't want his hand cut off in that way. And I'd prefer that you were making pictures that had more context and more, a higher degree of difficulty, incorporating his players, having something in the background that can break up the white space or something. And not every picture has to be like that. But if you're going to do a picture like this, you really need to nail the hand. Like, the hand needs to be in the frame, right? Yeah. So, pick your lane. Are you doing something edgy and cool? Or are you doing something straight up? Make the best version of whatever that picture is and don't get caught in the middle of it.
It's kind of difficult thing to judge. Like, I don't mind, but I don't really care that much either. It's a bit half and half about it.
It's too far away. I think it looks like it's cropped down quite a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, listen, like, this is the kind of thing where I'm sure we've blasted Reed for timing before, and this is so we have to give it up now that he did it right. Like, this is the perfect timing that there could possibly be, right? It's the perfect tackle, and he separated it from the ball, but the ball is still there. Like, all of that, perfect, right? But it just happened going away from you, and it happened too far away, and you had to crop down too much, and you have to release it. You just have to know that that's not what it is, you know?
Um, no, I think it's a good idea. I honestly do. Like, I think having someone static in one place and then the other person or the other character being non-static and be blurry, I think it's very, very good. Um, I'm kind of okay, but I'm kind of not okay about it. Like, I don't know something's bothering me with this. Like, I can't really put a finger on it. Like, it's all right. It's like it's all right.
I was just having a conversation with this about one of the people that I'm helping with rodeo photography, and it's it's very difficult to do. His thing was he was shooting wrestling, I think, and it was he wanted to do a long exposure to get the mat and the background or whatever to be stable, and then the wrestlers to be moving
Not
around.
moving around.
It's just such a high wire act, you know. It just depends on the lighting, and it depends on um, how much movement there is, and if there's different lighting on them than there is on the background or whatever. It's just so difficult. I think, you know, for me, the human brain is not, it just doesn't do well with things, you know, where the motion blur is like this. Like, you just, I don't know. It's tough because it is a good idea and it does show something in a way that most people wouldn't. When you're watching a soccer game on TV, this isn't what you see, right? So it took creativity to get to this point. I just don't think that having something that big be blurry like that is the way you do it. I remember back when I was just learning photography, and I would set my camera up on a tripod, and I would do, you know, I would take it to like I don't know, soccer practice or whatever, and do like 4-second exposures while people were running up to take goal kicks or something like that. And you have the field and the markings and all of that info, you know, like clear or whatever, but then you have the player as a form basically just going through there. And if you had it, let's say the background was dark and the player was wearing a light color shirt, then you might have something. But if it was, you know, the player was wearing white and the wall was painted white or something like that, it's just going to look bad, right? And so those are the things that you have to contend with. And I just getting back to the point earlier, I just don't think the human brain is set up to find large blurry things like that visually pleasing. I just think that's the cold hard reality of it.
I mean, I'm definitely not saying to Jules that this is something that he shouldn't be doing. I think
I'm
he
not saying that
should.
either.
It's just, yeah, you know, there has to be something a bit more. I don't know, because like maybe like if there were like a lot of these guys at the same time like doing that, I think would have been better. But it just feels like it's, yeah, I don't know, man. It's weird, huh?
I think maybe you need either more blurry guys, and the exception is the in focus guy, or you have more in focus guys and you just have the one blurry guy or something. I think that the mismatch is that it's 50-50.
Are this doesn't work. Like, I don't see the point. Like the other one had a point, I think, but this one just like it's multiple exposure for the sake of multiple exposure.
Right.
And we see a lot for some reason, like people have actually discovered multiple exposure on their digital camera, and I've seen a lot of people doing it. Like multiple exposure is not easy to do because you have to kind of like, at least for Nikon cameras, like for Canon it's a bit easier because you can actually take a picture and then push the multiple exposure button and you can actually take another exposure on top of what you've actually got. But for Nikon, like you just have to like just do one after the other, so it's a bit fucked.
Yeah.
But anyway, it takes a lot of planning. It really, really does, multiple exposure. And if you just like, you know, if someone's just like doing some kind of an action, even that, like if you have very high frames per second, the action is so like this, the frames per second is too fast that, you know, there's just, you know, like I don't like 2 centimeters,
they're too similar. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not really interesting. So like, and this one is kind of that, like it's got what, 2 exposures, three, and then it's not three, four, three. Doesn't matter. It's shit. It's like it's really bad picture. So I think you got it going with the other picture, but this one is just, you just kind of did it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, for multiple exposure, I think planning is really the key word there. You're looking for somebody who's doing something that's, enough similar that it's going to fit in the frame and the context of the other pictures, but different enough that it's not, just a carbon copy of it, right? Which is what you have here. So if he had been like turning his head or something like that, or if he had been, let's say he had his mouth open in one and his mouth closed in the other two or something like that, then you're getting somewhere. But it's just, this ends up making it look more like a Photoshop effect, right? Where it's just you're making multiple instances of the same picture and then overlaying them with different opacity or something like that. That's what this looks like to me. So what I would do is look for a situation. Like I like how you have the clean background here, and it's also good because what you want is, certainly with at least the way Nikon does multiple exposures, you want a lot of light on your subject and a lot of not light on your background. And so when you find yourself in a position like this, then you say, okay, I want a multiple exposure picture. Then you're just sitting on this guy until he starts yelling at someone or jumping up and down or doing something that is more variable than just looking ahead and pumping his fist. And when you see something like this, I would encourage you to say, okay, well, what does this add over what just a regular single picture would have done? And then, is it necessary or is it not?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's try it again, Jules. I like, but like, I don't think you should shoot this guy again because you shot him twice, and yeah, I think you're done shooting this guy. Yeah, it's also fine, Alvaro. Like, it's nothing spectacular, but we got everything there. Everything is straight, and people playing football, but I think in this instance, it's either like, if for me, whenever like take a shot like this from the sidelines, where you're kind of making like that grand I'm in a football stadium type of shot, you need to make sure that there's something going on in the foreground, and there has to be something like action wise to me, like extraordinary, so that you can say like, look at this, because it has to be, to me, like, it has to be like, in this case, like really two things that has to be going on. It like, it's the grandness of the stadium with the night lights and everything, and on top of that, the action that is going on. And this is not enough action for me.
It doesn't pay it off, right?
No.
You see the lights and the grand scale of it, and then you're like, oh, cool, okay, what's the great moment that I'm going to be shown here? And then you get down and it's just a guy, touching the ball around the line, and not at all in a athletic kind of, and he's covering up the other guy. Like, if the guy with the ball had been in the space between the ref and the other guy in the red there, you'd have yourself a picture. Like, even if he wasn't doing anything great, just because of how they would have been spaced out, and it would have looked like they were arranged in the frame really well. But having the guy in blue covering up the guy in red and not looking athletic while he's doing it or whatever is just, it's the anticlimax to what you set up with the lights in the stadium.
It's crooked for no reason. Like, it's just, I knew someone on Instagram who used to do this all the time with all her pictures, and I told her once, like, I think you think it looks good, but my brain is telling me it doesn't look good, and I think it's too, in a way, it's very gimmicky, and it doesn't really do anything. Like, there's no purpose. Like, what's the purpose of actually this being slanted? There isn't, And I'm sorry, but I just can't. I think it's a horrible picture just because of that. Like if you're gonna then like rotate in that weird way, then make sure you rotate it so that there's a purpose for that rotation. Because here I don't really see any, and therefore like
Yeah.
I'm poo-pooing that one.
It's it's tough because I don't want to say something good about the picture because I don't like it, right? But I like how the way the frame is tilted over has him at like a diagonal to the corner, right? There is a pretty uh, direct line between the lower left corner and his head, right? I just wish you could have gotten to something like that in a different way than slanting the whole frame over. Because just like I think that the human brain isn't set up to process blurry things like that, it's not set up. It's a hurdle that you have to get over because nobody is used to watching TV with slanted horizons, right? They're used to flat horizons, which is why that's visually pleasing. And then when you do something like this and it doesn't have like a super obvious reason for doing it, the first thing that people's brains are going to do is try to unwind the things that don't make sense to them. And what doesn't make sense is the angle. And so all you're doing is starting from a negative to get back to zero. And I just wouldn't do it. I don't get it.
No, Jaden. It's for the love of God, no. Sorry, this is terrible.
Okay. Yeah. So, specifically why is sort of what we were talking about before is that in the volleyball picture where the girl was celebrating and then the two girls were behind her, that's what you have going on here. You have something in the way that's out of focus that your brain is just always going to go to the horse in the front that's out of focus, and then you're going to see, well, that's 20% of the picture and it's blurry and I don't understand, and then you're going to, oh well, yeah, that one in the middle is in focus, but you see just a very tiny little bit of it and it's small because it's further away. It's not visually pleasing. You have line issues, like the top of those chute gates is not straight. And then you have that it's too light out in the arena. So you have the bullfighter just getting too much light on him. So the way your eye goes into this picture is basically you notice green because of the chute gates, and then you see the horse that's out of focus. Then you see the bullfighter that's overexposed. And by then you're asking yourself, wow, this picture really has to pay off at some point, and then you find the part of it that's in focus and properly exposed, and it's not anything that would warrant you looking around a whole frame to do. I would say that there are plenty of things that you can do, and I would encourage you to work around the shoots, especially with a wide angle lens, because there are ways that you can shoot, from the back to the front or from the side, through the other side. You could be shooting the bullfighter when it comes closer to you. There's a lot of different things that you can do with those bars and gates in the way. But what you can't do is have this much of your picture be out of focus and overexposed. So you have to look for ways that you can line up the thing that you want to focus and have that be a major part of the frame. And you also have to try to equalize the different lighting variables, because you don't want to be shooting something that's not getting any light and shooting something that's getting a ton of light. And if you look at the horse's halter and then look at the bullfighter out in the arena, like that's a huge difference in lighting there. So you have to account for that. And if it means focusing or zooming in tighter so that you're taking things that are overexposed out of it, then you have to do that too. But I would just encourage you, walk around. Like if you have this kind of access, you should be able to walk around those gates a little bit and look for areas where you can shoot through bars at something and but still have it be visually pleasing, and don't have to go through like 3 different progressions to find out what the picture is of.
Yeah, and even then, if you actually had this the focus in the front of the horse, there's really nothing happening. So that will not really solve anything. So please bear in mind, because if I'm just looking at it, boom, if I see that there's a horse in front of me and there's a horse, I can say there's a blurry horse in the background and just see horses. What are the horses doing? Nothing. So that's not good.
Think about this. Think about all the people that would like to be right here, right? It's, however many people are at that rodeo would definitely love to be watching the rodeo from where you got to watch it from. So show them something that they don't get to see, that's visually pleasing and that uses the access that you have, in the best way. And what that's going to mean is not, you can shoot the first thing that you see, but don't stop at that. You really have to move around, change the, if you're tall, get down on your knees. If you're not tall, stand up, on a ladder or something like that. Look for the different opportunities that are there, not just at eye level and not just really straightforward. Like, you really want to be using all of these things to build a picture. And I know that that's going to take time. And so that's why I'm telling you to move around a lot, because if you had showed me like 30 different frames of what you were doing behind the scenes here, then I could get a real sense of, maybe this was just an outlier and maybe you had some really good pictures, or maybe this was the best one and you really need to, start at the very bottom and start building your pictures from scratch. So it's hard to say from this, but either way, the cure to this is moving around a lot and looking through the various bars and slats and everything that are back there.
Yeah, that's also the thing as well, that you want your eyes to go to the cowboy and the cow on the left, but your eyes go to the horse because the horse is so in your face, even if he's out of focus, And it's like I've said this before in this particular training ground, like less is more. Less is always more. So you need to really, frame everything so that all the important elements are there in your face, and not like you have to actually search for it. It's actually like not being distracted by another element, in this case, the horse on the right. You have to really kind of take care of it. And that's your job as a photographer, to see it and start framing it and think, okay, if I actually put the horse in there, would it be distracting? And the more you do this, the more you understand, like, yes, it's super distracting. So I might as well like not have that horse in. Let me just like move the frame a little bit to the left. So I'll basically just like cut him off just by just moving your lens a little bit to the left. And boom, you get the shot. It's done. That, if that's gonna look good in the end, I don't know, because I'm just kind of thinking, like, if you have like a half cut off cowboy trying to actually get on that cow, I don't know if that's gonna work either. But at least you get rid of, that one element that was distracting. And like I said, less is more.
I'm thinking of Jaden right now, thinking about whether or not to accept your advice while you're calling a steer a cow. And I just, your credibility is taking a pretty severe shot there.
It's a cow, like it's a round object, it's a ball, like, you know what I mean? It's a cow.
All right. So here's what I'll say about this. Yeah, I agree with what Ryu was saying. And so you have to think of this on a continuum, right? You have everything in focus down to nothing in focus. And as this guy is jumping off the horse onto the steer, you're going to have different views of him depending on which direction he had to take to get to you. So in this situation, I would say that you could have made this into a 4x5 vertical very easily. You just crop to the horse's head, and that picture would have been fine. Having the horse there doesn't help. Because it's so big and so out of focus and so the first thing that you see. So your options when you're shooting steer wrestling like this, you can shoot earlier. So when all of them, the steer, the horse, and the cowboy, are all further away from you, the ability of you to keep everything in focus is going to be higher. So if they're 20 yards away from you and you're at this same aperture, the distance between them and you isn't any different. So everything's going to be in focus. The closer they get to you, the bigger the horse is going to be and the less in focus is going to be. So as they're all getting closer to you, you want to be composing more and more tightly on the cowboy and the steer, which are going to be in focus, and trying to get as little of the horse in there as possible. You could do this completely differently, and you could shoot from the end of the arena head on to them. And so you're getting the hazer and the cowboy who's jumping off and the steer and all the horses in focus at the same time because they're all the same distance away from you. You can do that too. What you don't want to do is have them get this close to you and have you still leaving the horse's head in the frame this much, knowing that it's going to be out of focus. Because even though, like, most people who don't know anything about photography their brains would edit that horse completely out of the picture, right? They just wouldn't even care. Or if they knew the horse, their brain would edit in the horse to, oh yeah, I know that horse, right? So the advice that we're giving you is photography advice. It's not cowboys looking at your picture kind of advice, because what any rodeo fan, especially people who knew this guy, would say is, oh, that's awesome. He's going to catch, and his face is in focus, and he's jumping off his horse, and his horse is doing exactly what it should be doing. And so people will tell you this is a good picture. And for rodeo, it's fine, right? This is the kind of picture that gets printed in rodeo. But I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening to us. You have to understand that our standards are higher than what a normal fan would say if they saw this picture, or anybody in rodeo or the cowboy himself or whatever. We're trying to have you make great pictures that people outside of rodeo would like, that also people inside of rodeo would look like. So I hope you're able to kind of take the criticism, because it could be markedly different than every single other person who you've shown this picture to. And that's, understandable. It happens. But you have to reach outside of rodeo, because just being able to make rodeo pictures is not going to help you, do anything with photography. So think about, again, the distance that they are from you, the direction that they're going, shooting from the side versus shooting from the end of the arena, and then trying to keep the things that are in the frame in focus, and then get the things that are out of focus out of the frame. That's kind of where I would go with all this.
It's just a woman skiing, like literally. Woman skiing.
I have no use for this at all.
This is a no read.
I mean, she may as well be standing still, really. I mean, you have to look really hard to even see that the snow around is disrupted. Yeah, because there's plenty of snow that looks disrupted that's not from people moving. So, like literally she could basically be just like either coming to a stop or not even moving, really. So, and where she is in the frame is, really carelessly placed. Like you want to have her be set off, so completely surrounded by snow, so that right now you have like camouflage pants and that top and the gray helmet, and then it goes right into the trees, and you would want her to be either set off in the sky because she was jumping, or set off from the snow because it was all snow around her. But this is a snapshot. This was just like I was skiing and I took out my iPhone and made a wide angle picture.
I'm actually feeling a bit sick. Actually, I just realized that. It's okay. I think I'll live. But if you are like me, if you're feeling a bit sick, stay away from people. Don't go outside. Don't do anything, and just rest. And just stay away from other healthy people. This has been a Big Lens Fast Shutter production. This should go up anyway, like probably tomorrow, which will be Tuesday. And then we have something else that's in the pipeline that should happen very, very soon. And it does actually have something to do with, obviously, with sports photography, and with sports photographers who don't have a job right now, most likely, because none of them really do. And it should be an interesting thing. And I do really hope that you guys would enjoy it, because new content is always good, and we really do believe this is gonna be a good one. So from Big Lens Fast Shutter, please keep a safe social distance from one another. do not go partying, do not go to on a vacation, do not buy 18 packets of spaghetti at your local supermarket, because like we can all use a packet of spaghetti. And yeah, just keep generally very, very healthy. This will pass at some point, but we just have to kind of like, be a bit more work together with this, and don't really think about if you're young and viral and if you're healthy. Yeah, you're gonna be okay, but you gotta think about your mom, you gotta think about your grandpa, those people who are a bit older in age and have got like respiratory problems. So not just like old people as well, like people like are immunocompromised. All these people can get it from you.
Are you still talking?
Yes, because it's a very important thing, because
All right.
a lot of people don't really know about this. So yeah, let's be patient, and it's gonna go away at some point. So I just want to say that. Have a happy, merry Corona days, and see you soon. Good. It's all recorded. Fantastic.